right, greetings ceramics. Today we're going to talk about making your own cutting tool. So you're going to open up your bag of tools and you should have 2 paper clips. You want to get them unstuck from each other if they're wrapped together. And you'll also, if you look very closely, have this fishing line. So it's like a clear, strong wire used for fishing. Okay. So we are going to be using that to make a clay cutting tool. So it's a little hard to see, but it's there. Typically in the studio we use this thing. It's called a wire tool, and this is used for slicing our clay off of the block. But we're going to be making our own more inexpensive tool that you'll be able to keep at home and use over and over again. So all you're going to do, it's very simple. You're going to take your paper clip and you are going to insert the string and you're going to double knot it. Nothing fancy, just make sure that it's nice and secure. Like that. And then on the other end, find the other end of your string, and about 1 inch or 2 in, you're going to, again, double knot it. I'm trying to loop it through a part where there's at least 2 sections of paper clip so that it's not on a very, very thin part. So I'm trying to loop it over that part so it's a little bit more sturdy. So there is my cutting tool. It's probably a little longer than I need it, but it's okay. What I'm going to do now is take my bag of clay, Ceramics 2, you are working with this white earthenware clay. Ceramics 1, you're going to be working with a red clay, the red earthenware, but you're still going to be doing the same thing, where you're going to need it to wedge your clay. So you're going to open it up, and you might just want to take the whole block out. You can have your table protected, or if it's okay for you to get your table dirty, then go ahead and work right on your table. And I'm going to take my hands and I'm going to wrap this tool around my fingers because it's a little too long. Okay, so it's nice and tight, almost like if you're going to floss your teeth. And I'm going to cut off a chunk. For those of you that are making a pinch pot in Ceramics 1, you're going to want about a softball size piece. If you're in Ceramics 2, you might want to use about half of your chunk to start out with. And all I'm doing is pulling this through the clay. So I start out in the front and I'm pulling it through to myself, and the result should give you a nice piece of clay. Now I want you to look closely. You can see that there's a couple air pockets in this clay. Those are not our friend. We want to get rid of those. Those could cause the clay to explode, which would create an unsightly crack or even ruin the entire piece. So I'm going to put the rest of my clay in my bag and I'm going to start wedging. Wedging clay is essentially kind of similar to kneading dough, but you're removing air instead of allowing it to come in. And so what I'm going to do is use the muscular parts of my hands, and I'm standing up, but you can't see it right now. I'm going to push that clay down and then pull it back. So I'm pushing it down and then pulling it back. If your clay is really wet, this action will help to dry the clay as well. Make sure you're on a sturdy surface. My table's kind of wobbly. So all I'm doing is pushing and then pulling the clay back, and then I'm moving it to be a bit of a different angle, and I'm pushing and pulling the clay. What you don't want to do is create like a flat pancake. You're just pushing, pulling, and I'm standing up so I can really put my body weight into it. After you've done that about 10 times or so, then you can kind of pound it on the table. And then use your hands to kind of pat it into a ball. So if you're in clay 2, I'd say you want a piece that's about the size of a grapefruit at least. If you're in clay 1, probably about the size of an orange, so a little bit smaller. So now I'm going to take my tool again, and I'm going to wrap it around my hands, and I'm going to slice this ball open to see if I have an air bubble. And as you can see, it looks nice and clean, right? You might see a tiny spot or two, but that's really not of concern. It's big air bubbles that you want to be worried about. So a large air bubble will look something like that. Might not be quite as clean, but it will be a decent size hole. Okay. If you've cut it open and it looks clean, you can then wedge it back together and make sure it's in one nice big piece. And then if you're making a pinch pot, you'll put it into a ball. If you're making a tile, we'll talk about the next step in a minute.